Yo, what is up guys, Delboy here, aka Blue Collar Sports TV. Hopefully you guys are doing well. If you're new here, smash that like, hit subscribe, all of that good stuff. So this video is a quick preview and prediction for Chris Eubank Jr. versus Liam Smith 2. Of course, this fight goes down on the 2nd of September, takes place at the Manchester Arena, and of course this fight will be on Sky Box Office on pay-per-view. Now, I won't be buying this fight, however, I can't lie, for whatever reason I am somewhat looking forward to it. There is a lot on the line in this fight. You would think that if Chris Eubank Jr. were to lose again to Liam Smith, he retires. Of course, first time around he got stopped. He got stopped in the 4th round, in a fight in which surprised a lot of people. I know a lot of people gave Liam Smith a good chance to win, but even people picking Liam Smith weren't picking him in that manner. And yeah, the manner of victory definitely shocked people, including myself. So it's a lot for Chris Eubank Jr. to come back from. And if he is to lose this rematch, I don't really see where he goes from here. And even Liam Smith, if Liam Smith were to lose, what else is out there for him? A third fight with Chris Eubank Jr., a rubber match? I'm not really convinced that will go down well. This fight to me, this rematch, doesn't seem to be getting much attention, so yeah, I couldn't see a third fight happening. So when you look at it, there is a lot to play for here, potentially careers being on the line. And who knows, maybe the winner could be in line to fight for a middleweight title. They could be in a good position considering how weak middleweight is. So there's a lot on the line. Some of the build-up's been fun. It is what it is. It's one of those fights. It's a good domestic fight. Nothing more, nothing less. Let's briefly break down the tale of the tape. And, I will then give my opinions on what I believe each guy should do to win. And at the end of the video, I will make my final prediction. Liam Smith. Liam Smith has a record of 33 wins, 3 defeats, 1 draw, 20 of his 33 wins coming by way of knockout. Chris Eubank Jr. has a record of 32 wins, 3 defeats, 23 of his 32 wins coming by way of knockouts. Liam Smith is listed as 5'9.5" with a 69-inch reach, whereas Chris Eubank Jr. is listed as 5'11" with a 72.5-inch reach. So Eubank Jr. is the taller, longer man, 1.5 inches taller, and he has a 3.5-inch reach advantage. We shall see if Chris Eubank Jr. tries to utilise that in this rematch. Both of these fighters are orthodox. Liam Smith is 35 years old, whereas Chris Eubank Jr. is 33 years old. Both guys coming towards the end of their careers. Overall, I would say Liam Smith has fought better competition overall, but the experience is pretty comparable. I'd say both guys now are on the downward trend, to be honest. Both guys probably have seen better days by this point, but neither guy is significantly past his best or anything like that. But anyway, now the tale of the tape is out of the way, I'll start with Chris Eubank Jr. and what I believe he should do to have his best chances of winning this fight. Now, of course, Chris Eubank Jr. lost the last fight by a 4th round knockout. I personally felt Eubank Jr. went into that fight displaying a lot of arrogance, a lot of ego, which I felt was unearned considering Chris Eubank Jr.'s career to date. Of course, fighters have to be self-confident, they have to have self-belief, but there's a fine line between confidence and delusion. And I truly felt Chris Eubank Jr. went into that first fight truly believing he was levels above Liam Smith. Even though he's never done anything in his career to prove that, he kind of looked at Liam Smith like he was an average low-level British title contender, when in reality Liam Smith is actually a lot better than that. Right now I'd probably put Liam Smith at fringe world level, borderline top 10 level at middleweight. So this time around, Chris Eubank Jr. has to respect Liam Smith. He has to respect what he brings to the table. And, given how that last fight went, he has no other choice but to, right? So yeah, I want to see a better attitude from Chris Eubank Jr. in this fight. A more professional approach, where he takes Liam Smith more seriously, not just believing in order to win he just has to turn up. Because I do believe he went into that fight first time around with an overinflated ego, and, he got burnt because of it. For me, when I compare both fighters, in many ways, Liam Smith is actually better technically than Chris Eubank Jr. I know people run with this narrative that Eubank's a better boxer, but Liam Smith does do a lot better in many aspects. First and foremost, I would say overall, Liam Smith has better punch technique in regards to how he turns his shots over. Overall, I think Liam Smith has far superior balance and footwork. I mean, when you compare the two, Chris Eubank Jr. finds himself off balance way more than Liam Smith, and that's a good indicator of who has better footwork. One thing Chris Eubank Jr. does have over Liam Smith, though, is athleticism, both in terms of hand speed and foot speed, and in combination, he is taller and longer. When Chris Eubank Jr. kept it long in the second and third rounds against Liam Smith, Liam did, I wouldn't say he was finding it difficult, but he had a little trouble closing the distance on Chris Eubank Jr. When Eubank Jr. was backpedaling, popping the jab, sometimes throwing the 1-2, he couldn't always close that distance against Chris Eubank Jr. Not because Chris Eubank Jr. has better footwork, but he's taller, he's longer, he's quicker on his feet, and he's got quicker hands. Considering how the first fight went, I think Chris Eubank Jr. needs to do a better job of utilising his physical assets, foot speed, hand speed, and length. Probably approach this fight on the back foot by popping the jab, moving backwards, trying to keep Liam Smith moving on the front foot, because Liam primarily does his best work when his opponent is stationary, when you're trading with him, when your back's against the ropes or in the corner. That's when Liam does his best work. That's when he can kind of unwind with those crooked arm shots, the hooks, the uppercuts, the body work. That's when Liam's at his best, on the inside or up close. So for me, Chris Eubank Jr. needs to take that play away from Liam Smith. I certainly think he needs to start this fight cautiously, behind the jab, doubling the jab, feint, spin out, make Liam have to close the distance, make Liam work for every single opportunity that he could get. And, dare I say, maybe Chris Eubank Jr. has to be a little conservative, a little negative early on. I mean, if you go back and watch the first fight, when Eubank was doing that, when he was moving, when he was keeping a bit of distance, he was having some success. And yeah, Liam Smith was blocking a lot of those shots with his guard, but some were getting through. Some were splitting the guard. And again, even if Liam is blocking a lot of those sort of straight punches, the jab, the straight right hand, if Eubank Jr. is moving backwards and being elusive, Liam's not going to get much off anyway. He's not great at punching on the front foot, for my money. So yeah, I want to see Chris Eubank Jr. box early on. Eventually he'll start to tag Liam Smith like he did first time around. He started to get too confident, and we saw third round, Eubank had some success. He was boxing, then he mixed it up, started to stand with Liam Smith a little longer, landed a series of good uppercuts, and at that point in time, I think Eubank Jr. felt he could do what he wanted, but we saw in round 4, lazily backed up to the ropes, not being conscious of getting out. Liam Smith closes the gap, combination, Eubank Jr. stopped. I felt Eubank Jr. let it hang out too early against Liam Smith first time around. In this fight, I think he needs to be boxing for longer. Don't get me wrong, there's always going to be times in fights where Eubank Jr. will need to mix it up, and I think he's got the speed to do it. He's got the uppercuts inside, he can trade with Liam Smith up close, but he needs to be conscious of not staying too long. He needs to be conscious of, not taking silly shots and getting greedy, because we don't really know what Chris Eubank Jr.'s chin is like these days. He's always had a good chin, but when you get stopped like that, you have to question it. Plus the fact he's 33 years old now, still making middleweight. Liam Smith is far more comfortable at middleweight in comparison to Chris Eubank Jr. So yeah, if I'm Eubank Jr., I wouldn't chance it. I would keep the exchanges to a minimum and ultimately box as much as possible. I also think when he is boxing, it's worth changing the levels. So the jab, I want to see him jab upstairs and downstairs, feint with a jab, straight right to the body, that sort of thing. Mix things up. Try to get the straight punches to the solar plexus, because One thing about Liam Smith, he holds a very good guard and he is effective at blocking straight shots to the head. So mix it up, try and lower that guard of Liam Smith and even try to deplete him coming forwards by targeting that body with the jab, with the straight right hand. When you look at those sort of shots, sometimes you think they're not really effective, but if you land enough, they can certainly start taking their toll on your opponents. So the straight shots to the body of Chris Eubank Jr. could be another avenue for success. But primarily for me, this fight for Chris Eubank Jr., again, just considering how the first fight went, to me this fight has to be reliant on boxing for Chris Eubank Jr. Not that he's a great outboxer, but he's got enough physical ability and athleticism to give Liam Smith trouble. And we saw that in parts of the first fight. So for me, it's just about Chris Eubank Jr. utilising the height and reach, primarily sticking to straight punches, utilising that foot speed, utilising the hand speed, and yeah, not giving too much away. As for Liam Smith, ultimately we know how Liam Smith fights. We know what Liam Smith's best approach is. High guard, coming forwards, pressure. He'll try and get close to you. He'll try and drag you into a war of attrition. He'll like to work the body on the inside, uppercuts through the middle, chopping overhand right up close, hooks to the head. Liam Smith is a pressure fighter who relies on the high guard and primarily is best at... He's decent at mid-range, but he's pretty good on the inside as well. That's Liam Smith's wheelhouse. He's not a great outboxer. He's got a decent jab and he'll need to use that against Chris Eubank Jr. On the front foot, not just following Chris Eubank Jr. around with a high guard. And I felt he was actually guilty of that in the first fight in rounds 2 and 3. Because when he was jabbing with Chris Eubank Jr. in the first round, he won that first round, Liam Smith. So I want to see Liam Smith be actually very active with that jab on the front foot out of that high guard. We've all speculated that Chris Eubank Jr.'s kryptonite is a good jab. Now, historically, though, they were against guys who could box from the outside, like George Groves, like Billy Joe Saunders. But Liam's jab in that first round, I know it's a small sample size, but it was giving Eubank trouble. Now, he didn't throw that many, but the effect they had on Eubank were quite pronounced. You know, they kept Eubank Jr. off balance, they kind of ruined his construct to a certain degree, which in turn kind of affected his offense. After he tried to throw after Liam Smith's jab, Eubank was quite wild and missed badly. Even when Liam would look to the head and then jab to the body, it was a shot that Chris couldn't really read. And in round 1, Liam threw that jab, he looked up, then went down to the body with a jab, and came over the top with the overhand right, which caught Chris Eubank Jr. A jab will befuddle Chris Eubank Jr. And in this fight, I think Liam needs to be boxing off that jab, out of a high guard, on the front foot. You know, not only as a scoring shot, and not only as a damaging shot, because, you know, Liam Smith has a pretty hard jab. It's a pretty stiff jab. But, you know, like I say, it just keeps Chris Eubank Jr. off balance. It makes him a little more inaccurate when he's made to reset and when his construct gets you know, put off key kind of thing. So yeah, I want to see a consistent jab from Liam Smith in this fight, which is something that I don't think he did enough first time around, aside from moments in the first round. Aside from that, Liam Smith has to be Liam Smith. He has to apply the pressure. He needs to keep that guard nice and tight. Be wary not to throw from too far out of range because Chris Eubank Jr. is longer, he is quicker, and in those moments he may get countered. A little bit of head movement from Liam Smith wouldn't go amiss. I know he's got the high guard, but, you know, Chris Eubank Jr. has some really good uppercuts that can penetrate that guard. So I want to see some head movement, side-to-side movement from Liam Smith while applying pressure. Again, he did that in spurts against Chris Eubank Jr. first time around, made him miss wildly. And yeah, he needs to get close, try and collapse that pocket and work the body. Work the body and come upstairs. Start the combination to the body, come upstairs, and vice versa. Uppercuts through the middle, mix things up. Liam Smith does have good punch selection up close. He rarely throws the same combination twice, which is one thing I like about Liam Smith. He can sometimes lead with the uppercut on the inside, then come with a hook, left hook to the head, left hook to the body. He'll throw a variety of different combinations up close, and he needs to get himself in position to throw as many of those combinations as possible. So yeah, for Liam, it's about closing the distance effectively. I think, again, this time around, he's going to be more reliant, or he's going to have to be more reliant on the jab, considering how I think Chris is going to box. And yeah, he needs to apply that pressure, really. Liam Smith, we know what he's got to do here. We know what Liam Smith's strengths are. He needs to box to those strengths, but be more consistent with the jab this time around. But yeah, listen, despite how the first fight went, I actually find this rematch really hard to call. That may be controversial. Well, I think it is, because I see most people are picking Liam Smith to win this fight. And obviously I can see why. He won by knockout in the 4th round first time around. I get why, but you know, sometimes you look at fights and for no real reason, you just get a gut instinct, a gut feeling, an intuition that it's going to go a certain way. And I've got a feeling Chris Eubank Jr. is going to win this fight on points. I don't know why. I've got a feeling Chris Eubank Jr. is going to win this fight on points. I think it's very possible. I think he can take the play away from Liam Smith for enough rounds to where he can win enough rounds to win on points. And despite how the first fight went, Chris Eubank Jr. has always had a good chin. Is that chin now cracked? Was that lightning in a bottle for Liam Smith? I'm not sure. I think there could be a few factors surrounding that. But I've got a weird feeling Chris Eubank Jr. is going to win this fight on points. I can't see Liam Smith getting stopped. I think he's got a great chin. Very durable. Good defense as well, actually. But I can't really see Liam Smith winning on points. For some reason. I can't really see him winning on points. Like, even if we think he wins 7 rounds to 5, I'm assuming they'd give it to Eubank. I think once again Liam Smith has to knock out Chris Eubank Jr. to win. And with all of that being said, listen, he can definitely do that. We've seen him do it, right? But with all that said, I'm actually going to go with Chris Eubank Jr. to win on points here. Maybe a close UD, MD. I think he'll win on points. Maybe I'm wrong, but we shall see. I am low-key looking forward to it for some reason. It's not a bad fight. I don't think it's pay-per-view worthy, but yeah, I'm certainly not buying it. But listen, I think it's okay. It's solid. It'll be fun. And yeah, I'm going to go with Chris Eubank Jr. on points. What about you guys? How do you see this fight playing out? Repeat or revenge? Share your thoughts below. Peace.